Most chefs are going to want a local product, especially something that came from Indiana. And if it's been handled properly and it's the best quality, we're willing to pay for that. Not only for the quality, but also to tell our customers that this fish didn't travel around the world. It came from right here in Indiana. First thing a chef wants to do when a fish is delivered is get it scaled and get the guts out. If the guts stay in for too long, they'll start to break down and they'll cause deterioration of the flesh from the inside of the fish and cause what we call belly burn. You want to scale the fish over some running water. It's going to make a mess. Scales are going to fly everywhere, so you want to make sure that you're someplace where you can clean up easily. You can grasp the fish firmly by the tail, use your scaler, and go opposite of the direction of the scales. So you're going to go from the tail to the head of the fish. Then to remove the guts, start in the belly. Just insert your knife right in front of the anal fin. Don't go too deep so you don't cut any flesh. You just want to cut into the cavity and go as far forward as you can. And then use your hands to remove the guts. Then rinse the cavity of the entire fish thoroughly. And it's ready to be fabricated or stored. Above all, the biggest problem we see are fish coming in that have obviously been mishandled. They may have breaks in the skin, and we don't know if that's from being dropped, if that's just somewhere along the line there was some carelessness. The fish wasn't handled properly, and that's something that we're going to reject if it comes in our back door. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about what a chef is going to look for in a good quality fish. When it comes in the back door, the first thing we're going to look for is check the eyes. We want the eyes to be nice and clear, not cloudy. These look good. We're going to pull the gill plate back and look inside. We want the gills to be nice and bright red or maroon colored, not gray. Again, gray gills would be a sign that perhaps it's been mishandled along the way. Maybe it's dried out, it may be a little bit old. We're going to look inside the cavity. If it's already been gutted, if the guts are in, that's not a problem, but we want to look inside and make sure that there's no what we call belly burn. That's a sign that maybe the fish has been pulled out of the water a little too long before it's been gutted. As soon as the fish dies, the guts start to deteriorate, and that can affect the quality of the meat on the inside. So you want to make sure there's nothing in there, and this one looks great. Also, we want to check for the fins, make sure everything is nice and firmly attached. These all are. This one's got a nice coating of slime, so that's a really good quality indicator that it's nice and fresh. The tail is nice and pliable, none of the fins are dried out. So I think any chef would be really happy to have this fish come in his back door and serve to his guests. So if you want to pack your fish up for storage, after you've gutted them, which again you want to do as soon as possible after the fish is harvested, so that we don't end up with any belly burn that could deteriorate the flavor of the fish and the quality. So what we want to do is have a pan, a solid pan with something perforated inside so that the ice can drain away. We're going to pack the cavity of our fish with ice. This is going to help keep it cold from the inside out. Get as much as you can in there. The whole purpose is to keep the fish as cold as possible while it's in shipment. You want to keep it as close to 32 degrees as you can until it reaches the customer. So we've got the cavity filled with ice, and then we're just going to put the fish in the position that he was swimming. A lot of people sometimes pack their fish on their sides. That's not good because one side of the fish could get waterlogged as the ice starts to melt. So you want to put it in the position, and if possible, slightly downward so that any of the juices in the melting ice will run into the head, which is typically not going to be used by the restaurateur. And shaved ice is best if you've got it. It's got more of a surface area, so you can pack more of the ice around the fish. and get as much of it packed around the fish as you can. And that would be ready to go into your walk-in cooler and be saved until it's ready to be fabricated. And if you're going to ship your fish long distances, a big styrofoam cooler is a good way to do it. We've got this packed with shaved ice, and you can just put your fish in, again in the position that we described earlier, in a downward position, cover them all with ice. Put the lid on nice and firm, and these would be ready to be shipped to wherever they need to go. Processing the fish isn't, it's not a difficult skill to learn, but it's really difficult to master. It takes a lot of practice. There's no secrets to it, there's no magic. You just have to get a good instructor, show you a couple of times, and then just practice. So one of the most popular market forms for fish is a boneless fillet. So we'll show you how to get to that stage. The first cut you want to make on the fish is going to be right behind the gill plate and between the pectoral fin. So you'll make your first cut down to the spine and just follow a line around the gill plate. When you come to the spine, be careful not to cut through it. You'll feel it. Turn your knife towards the tail of the fish and then use a gentle sawing motion. Keep your knife blade angled slightly down so that you don't leave any of the flesh on the fish, but you don't take any of the bones off. And saw all the way to the tail. And then we do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and then our next step is to get the rest of the bones from the gut cavity out of our fillet. So you can see the spine, or the ribs running all along here. So we just want to try to shave these off as gently as we can. So we get all the bones, but we don't take any of the meat. And then we have our two boneless fillets. And one of the things we want to be careful about when we're fabricating fish is always to keep it as cold as possible. So we're going to store these on a bed of ice with a piece of plastic covering it just to keep them absolutely as cold as we can until we're ready to cook. And if we want to remove the skin from the fillets, it's an easy process. Lay the fish towards you, horizontally in front of you, and you want to start at the tail end of the fish and put the fish near the edge of your cutting board so that the butt of your knife allows the knife to go flat. So we're going to make a small incision here. You'll waste a little bit of meat here, but it's not really much to worry about. Angle your knife, use a light sawing motion, pull slightly on the tail towards your left, and using a light sawing motion, separate the skin from the fillet. Or most chefs are going to want a fish that's around the 1.5 to 2 pound size, usually, especially for a striped bass. Sometimes we serve those whole. If we're going to serve a fillet, a single fillet, we may want something around a 3 pound, maybe 3.5 even. But I think most commonly we would want about a 1.5 to 2 pound fish. Okay, and after you've got the fillets off the fish, don't throw the carcass away. The bones and the rest of this fish is really good to make a stock, which could be the good base for a soup. So what we have in the pot is some carrots, some onions, celery, bay leaf, a couple of cloves of garlic, and some fresh cold water. And we'll put our trim from our fish. We'll cut this into slightly smaller pieces to make it more manageable. And you want to make sure that you get all of the guts out of the head. And heads are okay to use in the stock as long as it's a very fresh fish, which this one is. If you're unsure of the quality, or if you've determined that the fish wasn't at its freshest, then leave the head out. you buy the fish by the weight, so don't waste the bones. Turn them into a stock, just like we demonstrated. That stock can then be turned into a soup that you can sell, and something that would go in the trash can is now suddenly making you money. So our fish stock is simmered, and we've extracted all the flavor from the bones. So now our next step is to strain out the vegetables and the fish bones, and we'll just leave behind the fish stock that we can use. I'm just straining it the first time through an ordinary bowl strainer. And then we'll go one more time through a more fine mesh strainer just to make sure we get all of the little particles. Take some of the excess oil off the top, and that's our fish stock. So we've strained our fish stock, and we used it to make a base for this fish chowder.